Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending. Look at the line of people waiting to get in. There's an example of technology not working that well. Trying to scan your wristband. So it's great to be here. As introduced, my name is Jason Averbook, the CEO of a company called Leapgen. And Leapgen's an organization, and all we do is help organizations go through the concept of digital transformation. And I realize that digital transformation is a big word. But what's most important for you all to understand is that every one of us are going through it. Whether we're just putting in place a piece of technology or using a piece of technology, or whether we're going through massive system change, we're all going through digital transformation in one way or another. So what we want to talk about today is we want to talk about what that looks like and what you can do to prepare for it. Now, good or bad, I'm lucky enough to work with organizations all over the world where we do consulting for organizations, we do coaching for organizations, we do content for organizations, and then we have an online community called Fuel Work. And one of the things that's great about our relationship with People Matters is that as part of this session, because it's a quote-unquote masterclass, I usually do it in 4 hours. You're going to see it in 40 minutes. But as part of this, you'll be able to, if you want, contact me and we'll do this session for your team online. So we can do it again on a webinar format online for your team in a much different format, okay? So that's a great opportunity for you guys to interact in a different kind of way. So we're going to start with this video.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. While some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
So I don't want to pontificate on that video too long. Basically, there's two things I want you to take away. You have to be crazy in order to do what you're doing. Raise your hand if you're crazy. Come on, make some noise if you're crazy. Make a lot of noise so everyone wants to come in. Okay, good. And then also we have to think different. Okay, and we're going to talk about why it's necessary to think different as we go through the session. I'm going to start with this quote. If the rate of change on the outside exceeds the rate of change on the inside, the end is near. And what's important for you all to understand about that is that the rate of change on the outside of organizations is happening faster than the rate of change on the inside. Which means all of us as employees have different expectations. We have higher expectations of what happens at work than what work is giving us today. Does that make sense? The rate of change on the outside is happening faster. Now, is the end near? I think that's a little drastic. But what it's doing is it's adding a lot of pressure to what we need to do and how we need to think in our space. So I say it's about time we begin communicating in the year that we live, okay? And I think overall, as a business function, we disrespect what year it is. So let's think about that for a second. It's 2019, right? Everyone agree it's 2019? Thank goodness someone agrees on something. But ask yourself this question, what year is it in your company? What year does it feel like in your company? With the tools you work with, the technology you use, the apps you use, the processes that you use, does it feel like 2019? No, what year does it feel like? 2015, 2016, 2012, Y2K? That chasm between 2019 and today and how people feel is what we're going to talk about when we think about experience. Does that make sense? So we need to stop disrespecting the year we live in because everyone that walks in the door already thinks differently about their expectations of HR. Now, we're at a conference called TechHR, And what I'm going to challenge you with is that technology alone will not solve our problems. We need to think about digital and understand that digital is not technology and that digital breaks silos. To create an employee experience where I, as an employee, have one view into a business. If I have silos, if I have a recruiting department, a performance department, a learning department, a comp department, a employee relations department, and a call center, is that one view? No, that's a lot. And then I've got finance, and I've got marketing, and then I've got all this other stuff. We give our employees thousands of different views of the company, and guess what? They have two eyes. So we have to think different. We have to think, how can we leverage digital thinking to break silos? Now, what is digital? This is the most important slide of this entire presentation. Okay? Everyone takes out their, are you taking a selfie? Are you guys taking selfies of yourself? No, you're taking pictures. So look at this slide. If we think about the equation for digital today, it's made up of mindset, people, process, and technology. 20% mindset. What's our vision? And by the way, what's my unique vision? Who are the people in my organization and how do they work? How do they want to work? How do I want my processes to be defined and what's the output? So I don't want to just do performance management to do performance management. I want to do it for a purpose. And then lastly, and only last, if I have my mindset, people, and process done, then my technology can be successful. But where do we usually start? Where do we usually start? Technology. We pick a technology, we put it in, and then once we go live, people say, that's not what we thought. Has anyone ever been through a situation like that? All of us have. Why? Because we didn't do the mindset, people, process component first. So digital is this. Does that make sense? Digital are these four components. Technology is what fuels my digital thinking. So when we think about that, and the scary thing about what I said is that most HR organizations don't have a digital HR strategy. They have a technology plan. They have an upgrade plan. They have an RFP going to buy something, technology, but they don't have a digital strategy. Raise your hand high if you have a digital HR strategy. You're the only person that didn't raise your hand. No, just kidding. Only two people raised their hand. Okay? Are you keeping your hand up? You want to stand up? Okay, she's buying drinks. And she's going to tell you all about her strategy. No, it's great. So having this strategy, that's your vision. That's your ship. That's how you decide what to do. That's how when you go out there, you decide what you need. If you don't have that strategy, what do? You just start buying technology, and that usually doesn't work. So when we think about defining digital, we have to realize that lift and shift doesn't work. We have to think beyond technology. We have to realize that phase one is more important than ever. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But how many of you download an app from the App Store and then you don't like it? Anyone? Anyone ever download an app and you don't like it? What do? Delete it. And then how often do you go back to see if it got better? Never. When you deploy things to your employees, that's what they do. They check it out. They give it 8 seconds. If they don't like it, what do? Abandon and call. So phase one can't be stupid. Phase one can't be a minimum viable product because our workers expect more. And finally, we have to think about reinventing versus redoing. So let's talk about mindset. When we talk about mindset, we need a digital-first vision. This isn't that complicated, and it's important to understand. When you think about process and capability in HR, why would you start with paper? We start with digital, right? Like, that's the world we live in today. So we're going to start with digital, and when we start with digital, we need to have a vision map. So I probably spend 50% of my time working with organizations building vision maps. The vision map is your story at the top. It's your principles, which, by the way, there's only 3 here. There's usually like 6 or 7. It's what are my attributes, and then how am I going to measure success? Once you have this and you get this tattooed on your body, in henna, not ink, because it's going to change, it's really important that this is what you use to make decisions around where you're going from a digital standpoint. But if you start without this, you're kind of just hoping and praying that you're going to get somewhere. So a vision map is really, really important. When we're building our vision map, it's important to understand that every organization is unique. So all of you that are here today, you can't look at your neighbor and say, hey, are you using Oracle? Because if you're using Oracle, I'm going to use Oracle. Or, hey, you're using Workday, so I'm going to use Workday. Or you're using SAP, I'm going to use Workday. Excuse me. You're going to use SAP, I'm going to use SAP. That doesn't work. Because what's most important is for you to understand how it's going to work and what's the right fit for how your organization works. If you've got a vision, you can do that. If you put out RFPs not tied to your vision, that becomes really hard. Every function in the human capital space, if you're going to create an experience that the employees want and that the HR function loves, you have to answer this question. What are we going to be great at versus what is it okay to be okay at? What do we want to be great at as a function versus what is it okay to be okay at? And this is a hard question. But if you can get this answered and say, guys, it's okay to be okay at payroll. It's okay to be good at payroll, but we don't want to be great at payroll. Like, is that a competitive differentiation, payroll? It's not going to make or break whether our business does better. We have to do it. Does anyone ever call you and say, great job on my payroll this week? No, they'll call with a problem. So we have to do it, but we don't have to be great at it. We just have to be performing. But what do we have to be great at? That answer is up to you. So is it how do we engage our employees? Is it how do they have an experience that makes sense to them? Is it how are they allocated from a resource planning standpoint? You only can answer that question, and it's really important that you get your leaders together to give that guidance, okay? How many of you can answer this question? We as an HR function want to be great at X. Another one hand. This is so important, guys, because otherwise you're just going to spray and pray when it comes to technology. Really quickly, you can't focus on the exception. You have to focus on the majority. There's always going to be people that say, oh, we can't do that because our employees don't have a smartphone. Or we can't do that because they don't have access. Well, guess what? That's always going to be the case. But don't penalize the whole organization just because there's a few that don't. So we in HR have been great at focusing on exceptions for a long time. Now, I'm going to get on a soapbox for a second. I was working with a CHRO in Dubai 2 days ago, and this is what he said to me. He said, in 2019, we're going to focus, and we have a budget for culture and engagement, but we don't have any budget for digital. Did you hear what I just said? We have a focus, and we have a budget for capability building, but we don't have a budget for digital. And I got on my knee like this. And I was like, how are you going to deliver it to the people? How are you going to deliver it? Like, you can put in place great culture tools and processes, engagement processes, but if you don't think about digital together with it, how are you going to meet the employee? How are you going to get them to use it? How are you not going to get them to say, oh, this is just another dumb HR tool? You have to bring the together. You have to bring the capability together with the concept of digital. That's how we're going to deliver. Okay? And our job is to think about delivering experiences. Because what we want is we want to drive workforce engagement, not enragement. Okay? Engagement means I love what I'm using. I like using these tools. Enraged is, this is so stupid. I'm going to call. Why is HR rolling out another thing? So I want to drive engagement and not enragement. So that's the mindset. Does everyone get that? 20% of our effort is that mindset. The next component is knowing our people. To build an experience, we have to know who's going to use it. Now, all of us that have been in HR for a while, who's been our audience up until now? Us. So we know ourselves. And guess what? If we don't like the tools, it's too bad. You have to do them. You have to use them to get the job. But now that our audience is the employee, we might know the employee, but do we really understand how they work? Do we really understand how they feel? Do we really understand all the noise that's coming at them? Do you have a dumb portal that looks like a link farm that they're trying to use to navigate, or they search for something and they can't find it? Do we know the pains of our workforce? This is an example of a persona. And I talk about this a lot in my book that you'll be able to get at the Monster booth when I do my book signing later on. But if you know your people, if you know like what tools they use. Here, this person uses SAP, Apple, and Salesforce. Those are the business tools they use. Do I want to send them to 18 other best-of-breed solutions? No. I want to bring that stuff to them in the tools that they already use. I know what this sales leader's moments that matter are. So guess what? I should develop my journeys to make sure that those moments that matter stick. And finally, the quote is, I love what I do. I wish I could spend a little more time with my team rather than completing forms. Most people spend 40% of their time doing stuff that's not the job we hired them to do. And what we want to do with a digital experience is break that. We need to make sure we understand, this is a major vitamin store, GNC, that's a customer of ours, some of you may have heard of it, that they're talking about, hey, how do people feel in the pre-hire process in the first week, and then in weeks 2 through 12? So how are they feeling in each step of the way? So understanding that, and then being able to map it. So, hey, step 1, when they apply, they feel good. By the time they get to 3 weeks, a paper check? Really? I've not had real conversations with my manager. Does that make sense? We're mapping your journey. Okay? And the more that we as a function can get good at mapping journeys, the better we're going to be. Because that's what drives experience. If we don't do that and we just put a tool in front of people and say, go at it, once again, that's really, really difficult. So let's talk about process. And when we talk about process, there's 2 concepts that I need to get across. The first is the concept of automation. The second is the concept of digitization. In the world of automation, what I'm doing is I'm taking a process and putting it online. So we have a lot of organizations around the world that have said, hey, we're going to take the performance management process, people don't like it, and we're going to put it online. Well, guess what? How do they feel now? They still don't like it. In fact, they like it worse. So what I want to do is I want to be able to say, based on leveraging technology and digital thinking, I'm going to reimagine that process. So raise your hand if you're thinking about changing your performance management process. Raise your hands. So raise your hand if you do it once a year. Raise your hand if you do it all the time. Raise your hand if you don't do any performance management. No, it's fascinating to me because I just gave this quote I have 2 boys. They're 14 and 11. And I just gave this quote in Dubai 2 days ago to the newspaper where that sounds old, doesn't it? Newspaper? To this media organization that basically said to me, why do you think performance management should go away from once a year? And I said, do you do anything once a year anymore? Like, how often do you ask your kids how their day was? Once a year? How often do you ask your spouse or partner how they're feeling? Once a year? No. We live in a world of engagement, of looking at feedback, of having discussions. So when we think about our workforce, it's not any different from performance management. Now, everyone in HR, wherever we go and do work around the world, say we're a high-touch organization. We want to be high-touch, so we don't want to hear about your digital stuff. And I always laugh, first of all, that HR talks about touching, because they're not supposed to. But second of all, this concept of high touch, I think in today's world there's two types of touching. That sounds really weird. There's high touch human and there's high touch digital. And guess what? A lot of what we can do better high touch digital. Right? It's scalable, it's repeatable, it's predictable, it gets us data. And a lot of our processes that will work fine for. But we have other processes where we really need people involved. Why? Because they're more complex. They require empathy that machines don't have. Does this make sense? So when people say, oh my gosh, AI is going to change our lives, it's going to. When people say artificial intelligence is going to get rid of jobs, it's going to. Because it's going to automate a lot of things over here. But and someone says, should you be scared? And I'm like, no, thank God. Because finally, we as a function can focus on things that are not repetitive, that machines can do. We can focus on the things that are going to make a difference. And that should scare some people, or excuse me, it does scare some people. I think it's a huge opportunity. So what we want to do is we want to shift people away from thinking that I want to deflect you away from talking to HR to I want you to desire to work with us because we add so much value. In so many organizations, people say, oh, HR's calling, it's a bad thing. Like, how many of you want to work in a place where people are scared of your function? Like, when HR calls, we're like, hey, we want to provide value. We want to help you. So shift away from case deflection to thinking about desire. And how do I desire people to go through this experience? And ask yourself this question, when you think of service, how many of you have a service center or a call center? Raise your hand. Raise your hand high if you have a call center. Yeah, how many of you call it an experience center versus a call center? Why? Raise your hand if you have call center agents. How many of you call them experience agents? Why? We need to shift that thinking away from being verb, reactive, to being a noun, which is proactive. So watch this video. Now, do you think digital can go too far? I'll start it again.
Emma. Huh? Emma. Emma.
Every day it's getting on my nerves.
Emma.
Oh, I'm
Emma.
begging you, please,
Emma.
leave me alone. Oh, you
Nouveau le trèfle maxifin,
So, in
vraiment
that
plus large.
particular video, that's an example of maybe high-touch digital doesn't make sense right there. Okay, but we need to think about that when we think about how are people consuming the capabilities that we're putting out to them. So I'm going to ask you guys to interact right now. And when you send an SMS text to this number, +1 480 418 1411, this means you should all take out your devices and do this. Okay, take out your device, send a text, not WhatsApp, not WeChat, a text, to +1 480 418 1411. And in the body of your text, you should type in TechHR. Anyone do it? Anyone get a response? Yes? No? Not yet? Still waiting? So what you will, anyone? Nothing? Nothing? Maybe my bot's not working. What you should get is you should get a response that basically says, hey, welcome to SHRM Tech, or TechHR, excuse me. Please put in your email address, and you'll get a copy of the slides. No one got it? Some people got it. Okay, so if you got it, that's going to get you a copy of all of these slides. And my desire for you is to go back and give this presentation to your HR team. Or you have my email address now, because guess what? You got it real time. It's already there. You email me and say, I want you to give that presentation to our team. Now, do you see what I did here? I used a bot. Notice what the bot said. It said, hi, my name is Esther. I'm your bot. Please put in your email address. Now, was that easy? Raise your hand if it was easy. Did you go through training? Major change management? No, it was in the flow of how you do your day job, a flow of work. You didn't log into a website or anything like that. So it's really important to think about, I just digitized a process. Because every time I speak, you know what people do afterwards? They come give me their business card. And then what do? Lose them? No, hopefully I don't lose them. I email the presentation to them so they have the slides. By using the bot, what do you have? How many of you got the slides in your email? Great. So you already have the slides in your email. That doesn't mean you can leave, by the way. But you already have the slides in your email, and you can use them for whatever you want to. I use this as an example of digitizing a process. Now, would your employees do something like this? This is a free tool called TextIt. You can deploy any capability using this tool. So if you say, hey, I want people to download the latest thing. Oh, cool. Text this number, get it back. This is consumerism, and this is how experience works. So let's talk about consumerism. What people remember when they think about experience is not what you said, not what you did, but how you make them feel. Okay, so my desire in giving this presentation is I'm leading you on a journey and an experience to make you feel like you learned something, even though that woman's yawning. To make it feel like you took something away. That's the concept of an experience or a journey. And when you think about that, what I want to do is I want to do that in a way that's frictionless to you, which basically means you don't have to log into another system. It means you don't have to know all these passwords. It doesn't mean you go to a portal that looks like a bunch of links. It's frictionless. What I want to do is this, and once again, another key slide. I want to deliver a frictionless experience, and this should be every one of your goals, is to deliver in whatever capability it is, learning, performance, recruiting, an experience that delivers the right information to the right people at the right moment through the right channel. So think about those slides that I just delivered to you. Was that the right product? Yeah, it's the presentation. Did it go to the right people? Yeah, you had to ask for it. Was it at the right moment? Yeah, I didn't say go do it later. You did it right now. And was it through the right channel? In this case, yes, because you all have a device with you. But think about back in your office, it may not be an SMS text. It may be a laptop. It may be a desktop. It may be a fax machine. I'm kind of kidding. But whatever it is, what's the right channel that's going to make the most sense? And this equation is what makes an experience. Transaction plus interaction. Okay, so everything we've done in HR up till now, when we roll out self-service, what is it? They're transactions. Are those experiences? Do people feel good about them? No, they just do them. But at the same time I'm changing my address, or the same time I'm looking at my benefits, reviewing my paycheck, wouldn't it be nice if the system gave me the option to, well, I changed my address, maybe I want to change how I have my mail delivered. So take me right there. Oh, and by the way, because I'm changing my address, the company's going to send me a new thing saying, congratulations, you just moved. Do you see the difference? One is a transaction, one is an experience. So what I want to do, and I want to just take a second to talk about this, is how many of you have great career sites? Your career site, you love it. It's a great place to work. Everyone's drinking beer. They're playing ping pong. They're bringing their dogs to work. It's like, why? How could I not work there? So that's over here. And then day one when I start, I'm over here. And what do I have? Crap. My portal looks bad. It's not the same brand. It doesn't feel the same. It's got a bunch of links. Raise your hand if that's you guys. That's most organizations. And what we're doing is we're wasting an opportunity because in today's world, we're supposed to be always recruiting. Not always recruiting outside people, always recruiting our people internally to stay. So our most important job in HR technology is to keep our people. And if we're not doing that and people get frustrated or enraged, what do? Think about leaving. So that's all in our control. So finally, let's get to the technology. When we think about the technology, 8 to 10 years ago, everyone was saying, we just have to get to the cloud. Anyone ever hear that? Just have to get to the cloud. And I'm old. So I started in HR technology in the mainframe days. So I've gone, does everyone know what a mainframe might be? So I've gone from mainframe to this thing called DOS. Has anyone ever heard of DOS? Mainframe to DOS to Windows to client server to first generation internet to finally the world we live in today, which is a world that shouldn't be called HR technology, which we're going to talk about in a second. But this concept of the cloud, how many people think cloud makes great software? Cloud doesn't make software. Cloud is just a delivery vehicle, okay? So when we think about that, where are people today? They're either in three camps. They're still trying to get there and say, we just still want to get to the cloud. There's others that are there and they're saying, seriously? This is it? And then there's others who are saying, hey, we're really digital pioneers. We're really pushing the envelope. The cloud can help you do that, but not if you just take what you're already doing today and move it to the cloud. Does that make sense? Most of us, when we've done this massive shift to this amazing new technology, all we've done is a technology transition versus a true digital transformation. Remember what I said at the start of the presentation. Technology is 10% of the digital transformation. So when people say, we went to the cloud, but it's not exactly what we thought it was going to be, or we went to the cloud and it's not actually fulfilling everything we wanted, this is really why. Does that make sense? In the world we live in today, if we're only just shifting from one technology to another, we're never changing. Now, when someone in Dubai actually asked me this question, and they're like, why do you think we should change? And I was like, excuse me? Like, the reason HR should change is because the employees have changed. Do you think employees have changed in the last 10 years? What they use for tools? Oh my gosh, it's crazy. You have better technology in the palm of your hand than your company gives you to work with. You have better apps on your wrist than the company gives you to work with. So that being said, I have to change because my employees continue to change and business changes. So when I think about my technology, the most important thing I can do right now is to think about being anti-fragile, meaning I have a great foundation. Don't go out and buy a bunch of AI and bot stuff if your foundation isn't good. Because guess what? That's like, I say, this is maybe not a US term, that's like putting frosting on a moldy cake, on a bad piece of cake. It's like putting a sweet piece of frosting on top of a cake. Because guess what? You're going to talk to your device and you're going to say, hey, Esther, I want to change my address. And what's Esther going to say? I don't know what you're talking about. Or, hey, Esther, I need to update my learning, or I need a learning course on design thinking. If you don't have a good foundation, what's the bot going to say? Nothing. So having a foundation is so important right now, and realizing that data in today's world is what makes your foundation. Now, unfortunately, in the HR technology space, a lot of people think of data as just structured data. It's just the data that sits in our HRMS. But really, to create an experience, which is the title of this session, I have to look at my unstructured data, which are all my doc files, my PPT files, my PDFs, all that knowledge that's scattered around the organization. Because if I don't think about that, what happens? I just have this transactional stuff. If I've got data, I can do the P word. And the P word is what drives experience. personalization. If I don't have data, I can't do that. Okay, now how do you get your employees to give data? You add value, right? You heard earlier today Rudy Carson talk about Facebook. Like, how many of you give your data to tools every day? Every one of us does. How many of our employees give their data to us every day? They don't. Okay, because we're not adding value. Okay, so when I think about that, personalization drives value. If I've got good data, it gives me credibility. If I've got good data, I can deploy additional capability. If I've got good data, I can personalize. And then if I've got good data, I can leverage AI, or what I call augmented intelligence, not artificial intelligence. But if I don't have good data, this whole thing falls apart. So your foundation is so critical. Finally, let's finish with experience. Experience is not a user interface. How many of you use Uber or Waze? Anyone? Or whatever your taxi hailing system is. How many of you shop online? If you use online tools, what if the thing you're buying never shows up? Is it a good experience? It might be a good user interface, but if the product doesn't show up, what? Bad experience. If I order a car, good user interface. If the car doesn't show up, bad experience. If I use like an online dating app, maybe I shouldn't say this, good user interface, but the thing that shows up, sorry, whatever shows up isn't good, bad experience. Sorry, that's my joke. It wasn't very funny, I guess. But does that make sense? The user interface isn't the experience. And that's really important to understand. Remember, experience is how you feel. So in closing, what I want to do, and I want you guys all to think about, is how do you stop saying HR technology? Because by the name of HR technology, what is it? It's technology for who? HR. When I'm trying to make a business case, does I say, oh, I need more technology for HR, I need more technology for HR? No. I need to think about how do I deploy capabilities to my people through one IV. Okay, the one IV is key. Whether it be learning, whether it be performance, I just shoot some learning in. I shoot some performance in. I shoot some recruiting in. I shoot some compensation in. But what if I have a different IV for everything? Ouch. A. But B, it's a lot of noise. It's a lot of brands, and employees don't know what to do. So we're lucky enough to live in this world where we can change all of this. But to do that, the mindset needs to be created, which is our vision. We need to understand our people and how our business wants to work. Our processes truly need to be remixed and reimagined. And lastly, the technology then is the fuel. Does that make sense? The technology is the fuel. We have better technology today than what we're capable of deploying, what we're capable of our organizations using. And that being said, that's our work that we have to do going forward. I thank you guys very much for your time and look forward to the rest of the event.